it can be dangerous to paint a picture with strokes that are too broad. So let me refine this picture a little bit. And to do that, I usually quote a former Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who spoke to a conference of healthcare journalists about 5 years ago. Don Bartlett, who along with his partner James Steele won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for investigative journalism at the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper. They also won 2 of what might be called the Pulitzer equivalent for magazine work at Time magazine. In the talk I heard, Bartlett said, "The level of healthcare investigative reporting has never been better in this country, in the US, even in small and medium-sized newspapers. But the once or twice or 3 times a year stories don't make up for what he called the daily drumbeat of stories. Healthcare reporting in the US, he said, is a disgrace day in and day out. The daily drumbeat is a disgrace. There are no breakthroughs. That should be the next paragraph in the story when anyone makes such a claim." Well, this may be comparable to what I've heard said about U.S. healthcare. The leading U.S. health economist Uwe Reinhardt at Princeton asks, how can the best healthcare in the world fail to be the best healthcare in the world? Well, Dr. Don Berwick, who is an innovator in quality improvement efforts in U.S. healthcare, answers that question. He said, for some kinds of care, what he called rescue care, yes, we are the best in the world. If you need very complex cardiac surgery or very advanced chemotherapy for your cancer, or some audacious intervention with organ transplantation, you're pretty lucky to be in America. But most healthcare isn't like that. Most healthcare is getting people with diabetes through their illness over the years, or controlling the pain of someone with arthritis, or just answering a question for someone who is worried, or preventing them from getting into trouble in the first place. And on those scores, chronic disease care, community-based care, primary care, preventive care, we are nowhere near the best, and it is reflected in our outcomes. So it is possible simultaneously to have the best healthcare journalism and the worst healthcare journalism, covering the best healthcare in the world that also happens to be far from the best healthcare in the world. The daily drumbeat that Don Bartlett referred to has been documented by my own research through the web project healthnewsreview.org. In this project, we grade news reporting from 60 leading U.S. news organizations. We look every day for stories that include unsubstantiated claims about new treatments, tests, products, and procedures. And we apply 10 standardized criteria to the review of every story. And we've now reviewed nearly 900 stories in 3.5 years. So here are the criteria. What we look for is, did the story adequately discuss the cost of the new idea being reported on? And this is perhaps far more important in the US than elsewhere, since, as you undoubtedly know, we haven't quite figured out how to deliver health care to our citizens. So the cost is very important. Did the story avoid what we call disease mongering, which is exaggerating the seriousness of a condition, or writing about a normal variation of normal health as if it were a disease, So baldness or wrinkles or pregnancy or menopause or toenail fungus, as if those were diseases that must be treated, when indeed they're just normal variations of normal health. Did the story evaluate the quality of the evidence? Did it seem to grasp that not all studies are equal? Did the story quantify the potential benefits? Not simply talk about how wonderful this idea is, but to give numbers about how large or how small might be the potential benefit. And I don't know how this will translate, but we expect the story to do so in absolute statistical terms, not just relative risk reduction terms. And if that's not clear, we can talk about that later. Similarly, we ask if the story quantified the potential harms, giving a number, giving a size of the scope, how small or how large might be the potential harm of the new idea being reported. Did the story establish the true novelty of the idea? Is this really news, or is this old fish wrapped in new newspaper? Did the story establish the availability of the approach, or is it really talking about something that is in an early stage of a trial and may not be available for years? Did the story use independent sources, and did the reporter identify potential conflicts of interest in the sources? Did the story compare the new idea with existing options, and did the story appear to rely on a news release from some vested interest? Well, let me stop here because I have with me, this has been very popular with journalists, and unfortunately I only have about 5 of these, so they're not going to go very far. But I'll give one to Vladimir, I'll give one to Clara, who was so helpful with all of the arrangements. But these are computer mouse pads that journalists seem to love, that list the 10 criteria. And I've had journalists tell me that this has...
There is a copyright, or we can copy it?
It is yours.
Thank you.
Yes. And in fact, I could ship you greater quantities of this if you would like. So the criteria are listed, and as a reporter is working on his or her story, they tell us that this is a helpful reminder for them. I'm also going to give, I don't know, does the term stress reliever mean anything? Maybe it's just because Americans are so stressful. But we have things that we squeeze or to relieve stress. And so we created, we want to have smarter healthcare news. So we have little owls, the wise owl that says healthnewsreview.org, and it says Wiser Health News on the back. And if you are really stressed in your journalism career, you can do this. So let me give these to my hosts. And we give one to Clara. There's your owl.